Okay, good afternoon, everyone. This is Robyn Heffernan, and we'll get started here with our second episode of the Fire on the Fives. First off, can you guys see my screen okay?
Yep.
Okay, great. So, reason for the title of Fire on the Fives is because we intend to do this on the 5th of every month. Ironically, this is our Fire on the Fives on the 6th, since the 5th fell on a weekend, and we'll continue that trend just to try to get the best participation we can. If the 5th of the month falls on a Saturday or Sunday, we'll hold it either the previous Friday or the following Monday, so that we can get as many people on as we can. So, most importantly, what I wanted to start off with here with regard to the SPOT project is I wanted to send out a big, big, big thank you to everyone who has worked on this project. This project has been put together by a group of volunteer ITOs that have dedicated a ton of their time to this project, and probably well more than they ever anticipated they would need to. And specifically, three of the biggest players on that team is Virgil Middendorf, Eric Holweg, and Rick Hozak, as well as Heath Hockenberry as a project manager in addition to myself. Just a huge thank you to that team who has, like I said, spent their time for years now putting together this project. And most recently, I want to thank the NIDS folks, Jeffrey Swafford, Dan Arnold, and Collie Mars, for helping us on the NIDS side to get this up and running. And for the past year, you guys have been able to see it internally to the Weather Service, but now it is going to be available externally, and that's what we're going to talk about today, is the availability of this new SPOT web page for our external customers to test it, how we hope that you will go through the test with your customers, and how feedback will need to get filtered back to the NIDS folks and the SPOT team so we can fix any critical issues, as well as log any kind of things, wishful items that people would like to see on future versions of this. So I believe Rick is on the line, Rick Hozak and Virgil. Do I have Eric as well?
Yeah, I'm here, Robyn.
Okay, great. So all three of these developers here are on the line today, so if you have any technical questions about this, they will most definitely be able to answer better than I. So we have a good team of folks here on the line today to be able to answer your questions. And that's probably what a good portion of this call will be. I am going to run through kind of where we are with the project. I'm going to do a brief demo of it, but I assume you guys are mostly familiar with it since we've been able to test it internally over the past year, and then have an opportunity for you to ask questions for what our plans are going forward. So where are we in this process with regard to the SPOT web page? We've been involved in it in quite some time now, and so I just kind of want to give you an idea of where we've been and where we're going to be going. So the SPOT web page was created. It was created quite a long time ago. Most of the work has been done probably over a year ago. Most of the work has been done. At that point, the web page was transitioned to NIDS, and as of last June 2014, we started to do internal testing within the Weather Service. So last June in 2014, a PDD PNS had gone out, and it should have been communicated through the regional fire weather program managers as well to all the FOs that this web page was available for you guys to test and start setting up the content management system to some of the specifics that you would like to set up for your office. If you have not done that yet, now is the time, and I would suggest you do that prior to working with your customers to test, because that's going to be part of the feedback you'll want to get from your customers, is some of the local feedback with regard to what options you have available on your web page that are specific to your office. So we've been doing that for the past year. Now is the point, and today is kind of the first announcement of this, now is the point in which we are ready for our external customers, our fire partners, to start logging into this web page and testing it, and giving us some feedback as to what they think is working, what's not, and what they would like to see in the future for this page. This testing period will last at least until the end of this calendar year. Depending on what the results are between now and then, we'll determine if we extend that test period or if we close out that test period and we're able to transition over to operations. So definitely in 2016 we will go operational with this. It just depends on how this external test goes, when in 2016 we're able to make that transition. So how is this external testing going to occur? Well, it's going to occur a little bit differently than the way we test a lot of our other products. And the reason for that is that this isn't a public service. It is a service that is specific to our emergency management community, our fire partners, and those types of folks that we already have relationships with. And for that reason, we are not sending out a P&S to say that this is now publicly available because it's not public. It is specific to those customers. So the way that we're going to run that test is working one-on-one with our customers. So we're going to need the WFOs, likely the Fire Weather Program Manager, Fire Weather Forecasters, IMET, those folks within your office that have relationships, personal relationships with their fire customers, as well as your other decision support members that have their relationships with the other portions of emergency management community, your marine focal points for the marine community, and so on, to work with these customers to first give them the link so they know how to get to this page, but secondly, work with them to do a test. Now, how do we want you to do the test? Well, I'm leaving that up to you. A lot of the new Spot web page is customizable for your office, and I kind of want this test to be customizable as well. You and your office get to decide whether you would like to run the test in your office in a live way. And what I mean live would be you would use this new page for all of your current operational live spots, making sure that you had some sort of backup system with phone calls and that type of thing to make sure nothing fell through the cracks. And you would try to fill these live requests via the new system. If for some reason there was a bug or something you discovered and it couldn't be filled that way, you can always go to the current operational system as your quote backup. That would be if you did a live test. If you wanted to run your feedback with your external customers in a purely test mode, have them come up with test requests and you fill them with, the test forecast and send them back, you can certainly run your test that way. So I'm really leaving it up to you to determine how you want to work with your customers to run the test and also to communicate with your customers that this function is available and that we need them to test it in order to get their feedback so that we can make it operational in 2016. I'm going to pause right there just to see if there's any questions specific to this. Okay, so moving on, these are the links for the new Spot webpage. The PDD, you can do a Google search and find the PDD. It's where our normal PDDs reside. It's already up there and available for you and for you to refer to for your customers as well as yourself. And then the Spot webpage link is in that PDD, but I put it on here as well. It's pretty simple, preview.weather.gov/spot. So that is where the new webpage resides. Like I said, it is live, so if someone submits a spot request through that link, it will provide an STQ in your forecast office. So, so if you do want to do the test mode with your customers, make sure they are aware that it is a live link and that they need to label their forecast, their spot request, as test when they go through that system. So how are we going to educate our customers on how they can get to this page? Well, since historically spots have been a big fire, been focused mainly on the fire community as well as emergency management, I have put the link to the training material on the Fire Weather webpage. You can certainly have a copy of it if you would like, and you can link to it from your specific page. There are no, in this educational material, there are no links to the actual live page itself. This is just to educational material, so you can put this on your web pages without concern that someone from the public or that type of thing would be able to get to the live page from there. This is simply educational material I have on the Fire Weather web page. And like I said, if you would like it to link to your page, I'd be more than happy to send it to you so you could do that as well. And then finally, how is feedback going to be collected? Well, internally, we've been collecting feedback over the past year through this Google spreadsheet. The forecasters across the agency have been submitting their feedback through this Google spreadsheet, and then myself and the Spot developers have been monitoring the spreadsheet, kind of commenting on whether we think, that the bug or whatever it was that was reported is an immediate fix or whether it's something we can do in another version. And then that can be worked with NIDS as to who needs to actually make that fix, whether it's one of our Spot developers or the NIDS team. So that's going to be the same for the forecasters to continue to submit their feedback through that. Externally, though, our standardized process is to use our survey link that's in the PDD, and it's here on the page. It's also in the educational material that's on the web page for them to go through that. Now, if they want to communicate with you and you're working with your customer anyway and they communicate the bug to you and you want to put it on the Google spreadsheet instead of doing the survey, that's fine, but the survey is a technical requirement for us to do an external test, is that we have to have the survey available for our customers. And I would encourage them to fill it out because it's more than just logging a bug. It's really asking them how they feel the service as a whole is and helping them do what they need to do with their job. So that's it with that presentation. The next one I wanted to go into, I just want to briefly go through for you guys what the educational material is that we have on the web page, on that link that I showed you, and you can download it or ask me to send it to you for your customers to access. So it's very similar to the educational material you received a year ago when we opened this up internally for the forecasters to be able to test this. Now, what we've taken out of it are things that are specific to the forecast offices, mainly the content management system part, because that's truly just internal. But we kept a lot of the how-to and look and feel in this tutorial for our customers. So, it goes through, I'm not going to go through all the details here, but I'm just going to give you the base concepts. It goes through why we have a new Spot web page, what the benefits of that are. It goes through what some of the pages look like. It tells them how to fill in each of the pages. The submit spot, it'll go through how you submit the spot request. You can drag and drop the marker. You can put in your lat-long information. So it goes through each of the pages and describes for our customers how they use the system. The PDD, as you all know, is pretty generic, and it doesn't tell a whole lot. It tells what the product is. It doesn't tell really how to use the product. This is more the how-to for our customers as to how they use the new page. Now, the hope is that we've built a page that is quite intuitive, that people could walk through the page and be successful without having this material. But we also want to provide this so that people have this as a reference. So going through further onto the spot request page, the difference between the different types of spot requests, fire versus hazmat, search and rescue, marine. When they select these different items on here, it's going to give them different options as to what other elements are available for them to select, and that's what you have put into your content management system for your local office. Once again, still just walking through what the page looks like, what the required fields are that they have to have in going through. It's pretty obvious because they're in red, but once again, we want this to be some background material for folks. And then what the page looks like with regard to how they would select their forecast elements, their time frames, what these options are up here, whether it's narrative or tabular, and the time intervals. Once again, that's all things that you set up in your content management system to make available to the customers. And so it's going to look different depending on what you have decided in your office you want to make available for your customers for the different types of spot requests you might receive. I'm going to escape out of this. High split's just a radio button on there now. It gives them the elements that are both that are core to all of these different spot types. For instance, if a wildfire is selected as the spot type, they will receive these core elements. At all WFOs, these are going to be the common elements that every forecast office will need to provide. And then in addition to that, and I'll get to that slide in a minute, we'll show what the other options are. These are the core elements for prescribed fire. It goes through hazmat, search and rescue, same thing, and onward. And I believe, maybe I didn't put it on here. I might not have left it on here. On the internal one, I did have a list. It's rather lengthy, and that's probably why I cut it off of this customer one. A list of all the possible elements that could be added on by FO. And it's pretty much anything that you offer in your local grids could be added on as one of these elements. There's the observation page where you submit your observations. and then it goes through the spot monitor. So very similar to the material that we provided to you to train you up on the system is the same thing we're providing to the external customers. So you can give this to them directly, send them to this link, and they can walk through this prior to ever touching the system. So if I go to, here we go. So here, just for our sake, here is the preview.weather.gov/spot site. There's the submit spot side as well as the monitor spot side. If I click on the monitor, it will take me nationally to the monitor. And as I zoom in, and there's our first click. It's still thinking. It should be plotting. As you zoom in, it should be plotting, there we go, the spots that are within the field of view that you zoomed into. So if you're on the national field of view, this table is going to be huge because it's going to have every spot that that's been submitted or recorded on that map nationally. So, but it's nice because you can also permalink it so that you can bookmark that page in that view so that you have that particular view that your customers would like. So if this is what we have going right now in the test database, I happened to do a spot request just less than an hour ago. I didn't have the office fill it though, so it's showing as a pending request right here as Robyn Test. And the options, because it hasn't been filled yet, are to change the request, submit obs, or close it out. So with that, I just want to turn it over to you guys to start asking some questions, and from those questions, I can definitely walk through this page a little bit more, but my assumption in going into this presentation was that you folks are pretty familiar with this page and working with it through the past year, and that I really wanted to talk to you mostly about how we're going to interact with our customers to solicit their feedback external to the Weather Service so we can get that feedback in and start working on any of those issues. So any questions?
Yeah, I have one. I'm sitting in for my focal point here in Rapid City. And are you going to send this stuff out to the focal points so he'll get that information about the test and all that stuff?
Yes, I will send I'm not going to send this tutorial PowerPoint, the second one I went through, because that's already linked on the Fire Weather webpage. I will send this Fire on the Fives one, the first one I went to, it's just very short, out through the regional Fire Weather program managers to send to you guys. And then this entire presentation is being recorded, and we will have that on the Fire Weather Google Sites page as well.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Yeah, hey Robyn, this is Grand Junction.
Yes.
I had a question about if someone submits a spot through this test page, will it also plot on the map on the current spot page?
It will not plot on the current page.
So we'll have to be monitoring both to see. Okay, that's fine.
Well, that depends on how you work. Once again, how you work with your customers. So, if you only want your customers to test this in a purely test mode, then you would only operationally look at the current page that you've been using. If you want your customers to now start using this new page as the operational mode, then you'd probably want to monitor both, making sure nothing went through the other page by mistake, in monitoring this new page for the spots. So it's going to kind of be up to you guys. But you'll get an STQ either way in your AWIP system, so you'll get that alert.
Okay, that's great. And is this new spot page going to have the same level of operational support in the test phase as the current operational page does?
Well, no, it's not an operational system. It is a test system. So because of that, if you decided you wanted to do your test, like I was saying, live, if there was a bug, say in the middle of the night or whatever, say you got a spot request at 3 a.m. and you're doing it through the new page, and for some reason you can't submit the forecast because who knows what happened, you would have to default to the old page for that particular request at that time until we could get it fixed. So it's not an operational system. I'm offering it up to people to use it live if they would like, but you don't have to, and the other system is always going to be there for you to fall back on if something happened with the new system. In this test.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
So when you're using it in a test phase, then you're not interacting with it via AWIPS then, correct, or within GFE?
Well, you are. The communication channels are still the same. It's just how you want to work with your customers. So anybody that submits a request through this preview page is going to submit an STQ through your system. Now, whether they do it as a dummy request, meaning that they title it test and they don't really, they're just testing the system, and you can get to it when you can and submit the forecast back in a test phase just to make sure the communication channels are working. That's how you can run your test, or you can do it in real time with your customers, knowing that you have the other system, the current system, as a backup if something doesn't work quite with this test system yet. Does that make sense?
Okay, so what you're saying is if we run it purely in the test phase, we still generate the spot using GFE then, and then it shows up on the test page only.
Correct.
Okay. And AWIPS will recognize that then, the test versus if somebody submits a real spot.
Well, AWIPS is going to recognize the two different systems, if that makes any sense.
Okay. And is there much customization then that our ITO will have to do to get this to work?
The STQ product that the new page is generating is in the same format, so you won't have to do any customization with your GFE formatter. There's just more information on the STQ product from the new web page. So eventually you will need a new formatter to take advantage of this extra information, but that's not out yet.
Okay, thanks.
This is Grand Junction with another question on, will we have the ability to add additional layers like zones or counties to the map, and also will the mapping eventually be transitioned to Esri, or has something changed with the Google contract?
I can answer the second one. Yes, it will eventually change, just as everything else will. We were told by NIDS that we were able to keep this system for the test period, the mapping system for the test period, and we'll transition later. Eric, are you able to answer the first question?
All I'll say on the first question about adding shapes and stuff, that could be, it's not a capability that we currently have written into it, but we can certainly add it for an upgraded capability later on.
All right, thank you.
This is Joe in Las Vegas. We have the question back to what Virgil was referring to as the formatter. So the new test page will send an STQ to AWIPS, and we really don't have to make any changes GFE formatter-wise. But in order to take advantage of any new customizable things that might be available on that page, a new formatter will be coming in the future. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so if we do any kind of testing and then, through the content management system configure things, it'll still spit out those new items, or they won't be available on the final product?
The new web page will still spit out the new information into the STQ,
Okay.
but it shouldn't affect the current formatter right now.
Okay, and the formatter output, the current formatter output won't be able to address those additional elements. Is that right?
Right.
Okay.
But will there be spots for them, Virgil, for them to manually address that?
Well, the formatter, still reads the weather elements like it did before.
Okay.
And, the name of the fire and the agency, where it came from, all that information is still the same. So we tried to design the SDQ so it'll work for the current formatter.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. So, in a sense, we're really just testing it on the user end as far as their liking or disliking certain features and things like that. The output still will be pretty much what we have now because the formatter isn't going to change initially.
Right. The distinction, when you issue the spot forecast, the dot tag line is a little different. The coding of it will be different for the new web page than for the old web page.
I see.
So you could differentiate, the old website's going to ignore those forecasts because the dot tag line is in an incorrect format.
That makes sense.
And whereas the new web page will ignore forecasts for the old website because the dot tag line is in the wrong format.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Virgil. And Eric for the previous question. Anything else? Anything else from our development team that's on the line that you want to add, that maybe it's something I missed or anything like that?
I have another question. Maybe I missed it earlier. This is Joe in Las Vegas, but so we're rolling out through this test period. What are the dates, and then will there be an evaluation period after that? So what kind of timelines are we looking at again?
So what slide did I have that? Anyway, it's through, there we go. This is the slide. The test is beginning now, and it will continue at least until the end of this calendar year. So the PDD says through December 31st, so we will be doing this test. But if we get to that point, depending on the feedback that we have through both the Google spreadsheet that you guys are filling out and the surveys that our external customers are filling out, depending on how that feedback is coming in, we will determine at the end of this calendar year whether or not we need to extend that testing period. And also something that would be helpful to get feedback from you guys as forecasters would be how adequate of testing you think your customers were able to do. Obviously, rolling it out on July 6th is not ideal because a lot of our customers are very busy and they don't have time to really pay attention to a new system, particularly right now, so they may not get to pay attention to it, and you may not even get an opportunity to meet with them until the fall. So I'll need to know from the forecasters, and you can send that feedback up through the regional program managers by the end of the calendar year if you even think that your customers have had an opportunity to do a sufficient test with the system. So bottom line is at the end of the calendar year, we're going to reevaluate and decide where to go from there.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, well, and I just wanted to close again with a huge thank you to Eric and Virgil and Rick for all of the time they have put into this program. I know this has been anxiously waited for a very long time by both us internal to the Weather Service and our customers, and I really thank them for the time they've put into making this come to fruition. So thank you very much, and thank you all for joining today. Like I said, this will be recorded, so those in your office that weren't able to join today want to listen to it, they will be able to get that through the new Google Sites page for fire weather. Thank you, everyone.